All right. Welcome. You are here with Rich and Brian,
Hello.
and this podcast is called Lost in the 80s. This first episode, the inaugural episode, is basically just focusing on why we've chosen this topic. We're going to touch on some different things that we, as now mid to upper 40-year-olds, still seem to talk about on a daily basis. So, Rich, happy to have you here as always.
Yeah,
What do you
great
want
to
to
be here.
dig into right now to kind of give the audience an idea of what they can expect?
Well, I answer to the question why the 80s is something we want to address just because that's the question my wife asked when I told her we were doing this. And so I've had a little bit of time to think about it. And for me, obviously, your childhood is very nostalgic. You know, the Saturday morning cartoons, sports stars from the Bo Jackson and Michael Jordans of the 80s, and all the stuff we did as kids. I think the 80s to me was really exciting because you still had like the family community side of things. Like the world was much smaller back then. We didn't have social media and the internet to kind of, where we just doom scroll all day doing that. But you had enough new technology. You know, we had Nintendo, we had the home computer that came in, MTV, and even to me, besides Nintendo, the greatest invention of the 80s is we had cable TV that came into our house. Like regional wrestling became the WWF, and the sports teams that I'd only heard of, I got to see them play on a regular basis. Everybody became a Braves fan because we all got to watch them, on cable TV. So just kind of the merging of the small world family values and then kind of the new tech stuff, I think just gives us a ton of topics to talk about. What kind of things are you thinking about when you're thinking
Well,
about the 80s?
I mean, you touched on the cable. So I did not live in town, so we had the big, massive satellite. So you basically would go up and like twist the knob, and I think there was like two or three different things that you would like turn, and the satellite would just kind of like rotate, and you just hope that the crazy space technology would work to where you would actually find something. So I did not have the same, Braves on TBS or Cubs on WGN. I had more Boston Red Sox. For some reason, we didn't get WGN. We did not get TBS, but we got Nesson, which Nesson was Northeastern Sports Network. So a lot of Red Sox games, Celtics games. I can remember. So, I mean, now like broadcasts, they just keep going. 24 hours a day, there's something on. Sports Center, Baseball Tonight, First Take, whatever. It would shut down after the late program on Nesson. But I remember always in the summer just being up late, having buddies over, and all through the night, it would just scroll through like league leaders. So you'd see batting average, AL, RBI leaders, home run leaders, hits leaders, wins leaders, saves leaders, stolen bases, double. I mean, everything. And I remember it was a blue screen and the font was in yellow and it had like this weird elevator kind of background music. But yeah, that was a memory I had from TV that obviously today, with the lack of patience with kids or heck, even ourselves probably, we probably would not stare at that for hours. But as a 10-year-old, I thought it was amazing because I got to see all the stats.
Yeah, because you can just, which I'm assuming that the stolen base thing just said Ricky Henderson from like the time you were 5 till maybe right now. I don't know.
Yeah,
He's probably
that's funny. I saw a stat literally this morning that said that for someone to catch Ricky Henderson, if they started, like, let's say next or start with this season, they would have to have 29 straight years of 50 stolen bases or more
I
to
don't think
break
that's that.
the record. I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, baseball was just different back then.
Yeah,
People,
cable TV for us was so we lived in town and we lived in a little small neighborhood, and a guy literally knocked on our door one day and was like, "Hey, if you'll let us put this little box on top of your, we had the old school console TV, big wooden TV that you could like, if you got close enough to it, you could see the pixels." And he's like, "If you'll let me put this box on top of your TV, I'm going to run some wires. I'm going to hook some things up." And on the top, there were like 1 to 3, 3 to 6, whatever. And we had to push a button for how many people were in the room. I
Mhm.
think they were probably like beta testing cable to see if enough people were going to watch it. And I was literally like, I'm pretty sure this is witchcraft, but this is incredible. Like I got to see, yeah, like so I started watching something other than the Reds because that was like the local broadcast we got was the Cincinnati Reds. And so because of that became just like a massive Braves fan my whole growing up experience. And you got to see, even though I was a Pacers fan, you got to see Jordan play really regularly,
Right.
with cable. So I think, yeah, the advent of the things like Nintendo, the Walkman, I actually remember winning a sales contest in elementary school, and I got one of those visors that had headphones on it, and you could tune in an AM radio station. And that was like the big tech thing for like a third grader. And so, yeah, when Walkmans came out, that was a big deal. Like, so one of the things I thought about was, do you remember the first cassette you bought?
I do.
Like with your
So,
own money, you went to
yeah, it was Poison. What was the one where like the guy had his tongue out? I forget the name of the Look What the Cat Dragged In, maybe. I don't know what the name of the actual album, but it was the one with like Every Rose Has Its Thorn, like all those songs were on it. It was probably 1987. Fast forward a few minutes after I got home with it, we were a very religious family. My dad saw that album cover and just thought it was inappropriate for a 9-year-old. So takes me back to Walmart. I remember this vividly. And he bought me a cassette of Foreigner. So that was the Wanted Poison, got Foreigner, which actually now that I'm adult, I mean, not really, not too bad.
yeah, right.
But as a 9-year-old, in fourth grade, I wanted Poison. So I had to learn to hide my music, in a gym bag or in a shoe or, something. I would hide it somewhere. Going into the 90s, I know we're trying to keep this 80s, but I don't know how many cassettes that I had broken, thrown away. You're not listening to this. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I
So I
have
definitely remember.
printed copies that didn't have I wouldn't write what was on them. So there was no way. Yeah. And that was pushing more towards the 90s. I remember and I hope my mom never listens to this, but I remember the Two Live Crew, bootlegs tape that I had like stuffed in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah,
But my
that was
first,
probably 89, 88, 89,
yeah,
I would say.
right at the end of the 80s, early 90s. I think I was in seventh grade. But yeah, so my first cassette tape ever, it was still brown or tan, like it was before they had the silver one or
Mhm.
the clear ones. I had the original DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. I got that for a birthday party at Western Skateland. That's the most 80s sentence I've ever said in my entire life. I was
Yeah,
at the skating rink and received a cassette tape from Jimmy. I can't remember his last name now. Provenzali. Jimmy Provenzali gave me a
Proven.
cassette tape.
It sounds like a pizza topping. Get
It
some
was, yeah,
Provenzali on my
you
sausage
could just
pizza.
drive, you could just drive up to his house and his mom would bring one out, like a fresh
I,
Provenzali.
you remember I remember the excitement when you would get buy a single, like you could buy the single for like whatever,
Absolutely.
228 or 247 or something like that. And then sometimes you would get really lucky and like that second song on the back was actually just as good, if not better, than the reason you bought it. Like you'd never heard it before, but you flip it over and you're like, this song is fantastic.
So my dad kind of taught me about those B tracks because he was a big record guy, had a ton of old types. And yeah, they would have like a song on the other side that wasn't as well known. But he basically said the same thing when I started buying singles. I actually remember being at the College Mall in Bloomington and buying Janie's Got a Gun and Blame It on the Rain, the first two singles I ever purchased, which of course that was still when Millie and Vanilli were supposedly doing it for real.
Hmm.
Yeah, so music from the 80s was different, sports, and that's why I think that's why we're doing this is like I don't think our kids understand kind of what it felt like to be alive then. And so maybe we can share some of that with people or bring
Yeah.
guys our age or just make guys our age feel like they're living back in the moment.
Yeah. I think pretty much everyone that I've mentioned this to has been like, "Oh, I want to be on there. I want to hear this or I want to talk about it or whatever." So, I mean, I feel like everybody who grows up, like since we were born in, we're both born in 78. So you February and me December. So we basically, I mean, literally we had the entire decade as a kid. Probably a lot of first memories are when we were, what, 2, 3 years old, probably. So
Yeah, right.
we're in the 80s and then all the way up through, let's see, I got to high school. Yeah. I got to high school August of 90. 3. So fully in, preschool, kindergarten, elementary, junior high through the entire decade. So a lot of experiences that, I think a lot of people can kind of relate to. Like you said, whether it is sports, whether it's school, whether it's girls, whether it's music, movies, food, restaurant, commercials, Christmas toys, outdoor activities. I mean, there's literally dozens and dozens, and if not hundreds of things that I think people our age would definitely see some value in, as far as memories and things like that. So yeah, that's why we're doing it. Just to give people a little background, I am sitting in a baseball card shop right now. So for all the males listening, I'm guessing that at some point you visited a baseball card shop. Being 80s kids, my brother was born in 74, and our dad had a shop when we were kids, 1980, I want to say 88 to maybe 92. So yeah, we decided to do this a few years ago, and so we get to experience the whole 80s vibe on a daily basis. That's probably another reason why this is a big, enjoyable topic, and still a big part of my life, because a lot of the customers that we work or that come in here have the same mindset as being an 80s kids. Rich, you don't have, I thought you said you have a card shop in your area, but it's not like a nostalgic type of a place.
No, we don't have anything like that here. I'm in, for those of you who are here and learning about stuff, I'm in Tulsa, South Tulsa, Bixby area. So, but growing up, I was a huge sports card guy. As a matter of fact, even when I got my first job, shout out Chick-fil-A College Mall, like on my break, I would walk to the Hooks drugstore that was actually in the mall, and buy packs of cards. And I started working there when I was 14. So it would have been, yeah, it would have been the first part of the 90s. But even before that, I don't know if you remember the card shop in Bloomington that was over on the west side of town. It was actually a really good card shop. The guy was, it was mostly preteens and teenagers coming in there. He was great with kids. He always took good care of us. But yeah, cards were a big part of my growing up. I still have, thousands. Luckily, my son, who is an adult now, but when he was young was kind of an idiot, and he took my best cards out while I was at work one day to play with them outside, and took them all out of their packages, and then it rained. Like they were all in, sleeves, and he left them on a picnic table we had in our backyard, and it rained on all of them. So a lot of King Griffey Juniors and Reggie Millers and Michael Jordans all gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what you're doing there with these nostalgia card shops and paraphernalia and things.
Yeah. So like we said, we've got restaurants, cereals, commercials, just a lot of stuff that we're gonna kind of dig into over the next several episodes. One thing that we are going to do, we're going to do a lot of top 10, and we are not going to share the answers with each other. So hopefully there's some debating on here, especially when we bring some others on as well. Be some arguments telling you why your list is terrible and mine is the best, and vice versa. Top TV, or I'm sorry, movie villains from the 80s, just all kinds of stuff like that. Top TV moms, there's Darth Vader, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, we're excited to do this. Really, we thought we pretty much do this every day anyway, so we might as well actually present something on a professional level, even though we're not very professional ourselves. We're at least going to have the cool tech stuff and the ability to broadcast this out there, and hopefully have some fun with everyone.
Yeah, and I think also the family element of the 80s was a little bit different than what people feel today. And I would like to, we're both Christians, we're spiritual guys. I think the family and church kind of feeling in the 80s was different. I mean, we had dinner at my house around the dinner table every night. I mean, that was not a,
Yeah, we did too.
even after I got a car and a job. I mean, I got a car when I turned 16. My parents were cool about, doing that for me. I got a Camaro. That was a wise choice. It didn't last super long. But if I wasn't at work, I was home eating dinner at my house. My family now, my kids, my wife, we're all close, but everybody's lives are just different than that. Sunday is when we sit down and have dinner together. But like tonight, it's unlikely that I will see my kids. My daughter's in college. My he's about to graduate college. I just don't feel like that same feeling. We go to a very large church. We love it. It's great. The community is great, but there was something different about like your family and friends in the 80s. I remember I'll kind of close the stuff I'm talking about with this little story, but I remember my dad had a heart attack on his 39th, and which he also had a heart attack on his 40th birthday. That's not part of this story, but it is interesting, but not on 41. We went to the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I made one phone call from a payphone in the hospital lobby. And by the time we got out of, like, I walked back out of the emergency area, there was over 100 people in the waiting room. And I just don't think you primarily, I mean, they loved my dad and our family, but you also couldn't get updates on things unless you were there. Like now, when my dad was in the hospital before he passed this time, basically everybody was like, hey, text us and keep us in the loop on what's going on. But you didn't, like, you needed to be somewhere if you were going to be
Right.
a part of it. And so I think we miss that now. So maybe we can bring a little bit of that feeling and vibe back into people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this is just kind of give everyone an overview. Hopefully it sounds like something people will be interested in hearing. Just a little teaser for next episode. It does involve a little gray controller. I won't give it away, but it rhymes with Nintendo. So hopefully, people will have some fun with that. We can. I've got 7 of my games right now on my top 10 list. I got to think of because it's so difficult to narrow it down, because the problem I'm having is that you think of what a game is right now versus what it felt like in 1987. When you look at it when you're 47 years old, you're like, this game's terrible. But I'm trying to think about it as I was back then,
Yeah.
as a 8, 9, 10-year old. Yeah, because sometimes you play a game now, you're like, this is terribly boring. But it didn't feel that way when you were 9. So
Yeah. And there's also memories around those games, like when you got them and why you got them and, who got it for you and that and some of that matters. I think I told you that story before, but my dad bought me a Roger Rabbit game when I was in the hospital with a broken arm. And like that game was terrible. Like nobody liked that game. But I liked playing it because like my dad thought enough of me on his way home from work. He's like, I'm going to pick up this. And back then, a $45 game, I didn't realize it at the time, but for my parents in their like early 30s or whatever they were at the time, like that was a sacrifice for him, but he
mhm.
stopped him. So I always like played that game, even though I'm like, yeah, this game's kind of dumb, but my dad bought it for me, so I'm going to play it some more.
I
So I
remember
think all of it.
yeah, when we got ours, and this will be the last Nintendo discussion
Spoiler.
until the next episode. So dad got us ours, and my brother and I, we shared a bedroom, and we had a TV in there. And when we first got it, we had I think we just had Super Mario. We didn't have the Duck Hunt. We just had the regular Super Mario Brothers game. I know there was another game we had at the start, but I don't remember it. Must not have been a good one. But I remember waking up at I'd wake up to music and like a bright shining light, and it would be my dad sitting there in his underwear playing Super Mario Brothers at like 5:30 in the morning. And that's not the best thing you want to see.
It's
When you're
not.
9 or 10 years old, your dad's sitting there in his white Hanes briefs, playing Mario. One is because it's just a bad image, but two, you're like, well, heck, I want to play. So, but yeah, that was kind of the first that was the first Nintendo experience, which was really funny because my dad was a farmer. He was not a he probably knew nothing about video games before that, but he would sneak in and try to go through a couple levels before hopping on the tractor, which just seems like a really odd thing to do. But oh well, this is what
Well,
we
it
got.
changed the world, and we're excited to talk about it next week or next episode. But yeah, hopefully, we want everybody to subscribe. Um, in the comments, put some of your favorite Nintendo games or some of your topics that you'd like us to talk about the 80s. And yeah, we're excited to join this journey with you guys.
We are. Hope everyone has a good evening, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Lost in the 80s out.